This is Innovation and Leadership, where we interview Navy SEALs, venture capitalists, pro athletes, best-selling authors, Hollywood filmmakers, really as many different kinds of high achievers as we can get to come on the show. Today's episode is going to be from our mini-series that we created with Corporate Alliance, asking top CEOs and executives and entrepreneurs who have had very large exits, specifically about their thoughts on leadership and people. Also, I want to talk to you about one of our show's sponsors. I met these guys back on episode 6. CEO Zach Smith was telling me all about starting a skateboard company and how much he hated doing the bookkeeping for a skateboard shop, and how he really got led to start this business, Bookly, that's a hybrid combining bookkeeping software and human services. And I'll tell you why I let him become a sponsor. It's because I use their service now. I don't love paying $50 an hour for bookkeepers to do stuff that I know software could do way, way cheaper. But I don't love bookkeeping at all. So I want a real live human who knows what they're talking about to help me with the stuff I don't understand. Probably the straw that broke the camel's back for me, though, the thing that put me over the top, was that they could do my taxes and payroll also. So totally suggest checking them out. Go to their website, bookly.co, and check out their flat rates. I've been super happy with them. So now on to today's episode. Today on the show, we've got Cameron Gunter. He's the CEO of Peg Development. Cameron, thanks for making time.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about this. You guys have raised $300 million in the last how many years since you've been here?
We started in 2002, so 15 years or so.
And tell us about the kind of projects you've been doing so far.
We do multifamily. Was some of the first projects we started with. In the hotels, we've done some office and retail. We actually, back in 2007, got out of the big retail stuff. It's a challenging market, the retail world, and with the REITs that are out there and some of the bigger public companies that have lower cost of capital, it's something we decided not to stay in that arena to compete. We are doing some smaller stuff, and there's potential to do some more master planning communities with retail in it. But from a standpoint of really being a retail developer, we've stepped out of it and really focused on the multifamily aspect, the apartments where we have long-term income and coming into us, and then also the hospitality component of development. We've really had some success in hotels, and it's really helped build our company because we have that ability to find the right locations and find the right brand and be, have a relationship with the brands, the big brands. An example is last year for Hyatt, we were Developer of the Year for all of Americas. So it's a pretty cool little award that we got. I mean, it doesn't bring a whole lot of money. It was a 30-pound crystal. It doesn't give you much, but it shows that what our company's done and the relationships we have with some of these brands.
And so about how many projects? You came on in 2002, is that right?
Yeah, I started the company in 2002 with another gentleman named Richard Ellsworth. I bought him out of the company in 2005 when he'd been called in a church position to go serve for 3 years, and he asked if I would buy him out. At that point, I did buy him out, and then since that time, I brought 2 other partners on, one in 2007 and one in 2009 to really deal with our capital needs and our growth. So that's been, it's been a fun ride to do. We'll do about 1.2 billion cumulative through to date, with another 300 to 400 million on the docket over the next year to 2 years. So,
yeah, that's exciting. Well, the name of the show here, Leadership and People. Let's talk about people for a minute. Before the show started, we were talking about a couple of people who have been examples to you. Let's start with your partner.
Yeah, so the partner I brought in 2007 was actually an investor with us in 2005, who was introduced to me by my former partner, who I bought out, and we got him to invest in a project in downtown Salt Lake, an apartment project that failed. Who I actually had another guy we talked about earlier, is Sean Bradley, who was in that project with a couple of other guys that were trying to figure out how to get out of it. We came in and helped them really perform on an apartment project downtown that was really challenging. And so because of how we performed on that project and what we did to get it from nothing to now to a cash flowing asset. We built some good relationships. One is with the partner that I had buy-in in 2007, where he bought 40% of the company, and I owned 60. He is his name is Reed Halliday. Has a company he was a Goldman Sachs guy, and then he went out and started a wealth management company himself, a boutique company that really he focused on relationships and focused on how to treat people and what to offer people versus maybe the way Goldman Sachs did things in the past, where there was less personal, more and they were more business. I think Reed has the idea of, look, relationships are important. I need to treat everybody the same. Everybody should be important regardless of who they are. And just watching him and the way he treated me, the way he's treated some of our other partners or other investors, has been like has been friends with them for a long time. And I think as we continue to go through life together with him and with anybody else, I think the important thing is everybody should be treated that way, regardless of what status you are in your company, whether you're at the top of the food chain or at the bottom of the food chain. Everybody has good ideas. Some aren't, some are. But if we listen to them all, I think it benefits us all, and we treat everybody the same. I think relationships grow, and you just never know who's going to be a partner in the future.
So what's an example of this, being more dialed into them as a real live human?
Or
just what does it feel like to work with him compared to maybe some other folks who aren't at his level?
You never feel, with Reed, you never feel like you're not listened to, right? So your opinion is valued. At the same time, it makes you value his opinion as well. And so another example is I worked for J.R. Simplot Company. And one of the things is I was going through, that was early in my career after I graduated from college. One of the things that he did very well, a lot of people don't like JR, some love him. But one of the things that he did very well is he let the employees, even the new employees, especially out of college, let them have a say. And he did it in a way that nobody knew who was talking. So he had this innovation center that it was this big room, and they all had computers. This was back when the technology wasn't what it is today. But they'd have a brainstorm session, and they would have everybody from the CEO down to the interns in the room. And you could say your opinion right there. Nobody knew who it was. And some of the most valuable opinions were some of the younger people. But implementation took the CEO or the guys that had the experience. So I think using that example and seeing how Reed acts interpersonally is really what a good leader should do. And that's been a very good example to me.
You think about this thing that you said, you really feel listened to when you talk to him. It's funny, I've a bunch of friends from Goldman or Merrill or Morgan Stanley or something, right? And I think there's a lot of guessworks of what it's like to work at those places. And it's funny how the number one skill you bring up is his ability for people to feel listened to. Why do you think that makes such a difference in business?
We all want to be listened to, right? So if you don't feel like you're listened to, then why do you care to do business with somebody, right? You need to feel appreciated. We all need to feel appreciated. Not that we are, or any of us are struggling for attention, but there's some level of appreciation that we all need as human beings. And I think that has a lot to do with or how that relationship is built. Is if you're neglecting me or you're not paying attention to me, and I'm off thinking of something else, then why would I want to continue to do business with somebody like that? Just because, they may think they already have that knowledge now and they don't need me, and that relationship may not go very far down the road if you become partners or if you end up doing business, is because somebody now is and maybe not to say the controlling partner, but they have it already in their mind what they're going to do versus opening it up to other opportunities. So, and some may want to do that. I mean, not everybody works together as partnership, right? But if you can, and that's why I've liked Reed, is because he's open. His mind's open. He's willing to listen. He's also willing to give input, which is great. So learning from him, now I have that ability to listen to other people as well.
It's interesting. It sounds like such a simple concept, right? I think, well, I'll just ask you, why do you think so many of us, especially maybe ambitious folks or folks that have gone to leadership, why do you think we struggle to do such a simple thing? Why do we spend so much time talking and telling?
Well, as I think, for me, an example is sometimes I think I know the answer, right? Because I've had the experience doing it one way. And sometimes we get so stuck in how we did it before that we don't think there's a different way, or we don't think there's a better way. And I've found myself doing that with my current employees, that, look, I think this is the way to do it. And I've had to step back and say, okay, there is different ways to do it. Now, sometimes ultimately we end up doing it the way that we talked about in the first place. But a lot of times that's not the case. We've changed things at our company because of input from different people in the company, different partners, different staff members. And so I think it is that we have done it one way and we think that's the right way, but we don't open our minds enough to say, let's look outside the box. Let's see if that way does work and explore that. Sometimes it's easier just doing it the way we did it the first time.
And so for somebody like your partner who, let's face it, he's a smart guy. He probably has some of those thoughts already. When he does fight that temptation and he listens first, what kind of an advantage do you think he gets by doing that?
He sees other options, right? So he sees other ways that maybe if it's a business deal, maybe it's more profitable. Maybe there's less risk in it, and down the road there's more profitability. You know, we're talking about an investment now that, you know, he has his opinion on what he thinks he wants to do, which is a good opinion on it, but there's also some components that we think is a better way. And so one of the things I think we've gotten to on this one is a compromise that works both the things that may be more risky on his side that are really cool, but then on our side where it's less risky but less cool, that we've combined them together to make a project work. And maybe the return's not going to be the most sexy, but it potentially could turn out to be a good return for both of us, and there's a compromise there.
When you think about, let's talk about big deals. You guys are talking about, how big is the fund you're thinking about doing next?
So we're because we've raised silo or deals by deal in silos, we call them silos, and we've raised almost $300 million deal by deal. We feel like we've built a big enough track record to launch a $100 million fund, which we've hired a fund manager, a guy that has some experience with Bain and a little bit of experience as a junior guy there, who's running it and he's putting it together. And so as we launch the $100 million fund, it's we've got some challenges ahead of us, right? We've got communication challenges to our current investors to say, okay, we've had you come in deal by deal, and now we're going to launch a fund where the fund is going to have that first priority. So we don't have any conflicts to invest. We will allow co-investment with us, but it does present some challenges, and there's some challenges also as we sit and listen. We've never done a fund before, and so we don't know necessarily how to do it. We know how to raise money. We know how to do the deals, and so we brought this Jameson on to help us run the fund and put the fund in place. And, we need to listen to other people. We need to listen to my partner. We need to listen to other people who have had that experience, including you. I mean, you've obviously had some experience in raising equity and raising a fund. So it's important for us as we do this fund to understand all the dynamics of it. Because it's a challenge, and there's a lot of things that we don't know about the fund or about how fund raise happens and the big institutional groups that are out there. So I think this idea of leadership and understanding leadership has a big part in that and how we understand and implement this fund.
Yeah. Let's talk about somebody else for a minute. You talked about having Sean Bradley as an investor and doing business with him. For starters, how tall is that guy?
So Sean's 7'6". I like to, when I meet with him, I like him to sit down and not stand up next to me, because I'm 6'3", and I'm usually one of the taller guys in the groups. But
career-wise, he went to the 76ers, right?
Yeah, went to 76ers and then ended up with the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay. What's cool about working with Sean Bradley?
Sean's a down-to-earth guy. He's I was raised on a farm in Idaho. Farm kid. He was raised in rural Utah, kind of in farm country, and so it's fun to know that there's somebody like a Sean Bradley who's a star pretty much. I mean, you know him because of his height and his basketball ability, but he's a down-to-earth guy, and he's another guy that listens. He'll call me on occasion and say, "Hey, tell me about this. How can you help me with this business I've just started? Help me with relationships out there." So as popular and as a high-profile guy as Sean Bradley is, I think he has that ability to look. I'm going to listen to somebody else that's had some experience, and which I appreciate. I also ask him for advice as well. So not necessarily how to dunk a basketball, because that's more challenging, but he's a very good guy, a very fun partner to be with, and a very personable guy.
It's funny looking from the outside in, thinking, wealthy NBA star, and we hear things in the news about whenever celebrities act poorly, and being divas or whatever. In a situation like this, I mean, it really sounds like humility is a competitive advantage for him.
Yeah, I think so. I think humility should be a competitive advantage for everybody. I think it opens up more doors, and it makes, if you're able to absorb from other people, smarter people than you, whether you think you're smarter or not, that I think it just opens up your mind to a lot of other opportunities to evaluate and implement different strategies.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears here for a minute. You and I are both members of Corporate Alliance, the C4 group. You're a busy guy. You're building hotels in Alaska and doing all sorts of stuff. Why make the time for a group like that? Why?
It comes to relationships. As we've been talking about leadership and relationships and business, sometimes you work out business deals with members of Corporate Alliance. Other times you just create that relationship that helps you talk through issues. Or they may have a relationship, right? So, I've found myself on occasion talking to some of the members saying, look, here, I've got this issue. We're going through some growth. How do we scale this? Look, am I the right CEO? What do I need to do as a CEO? How do you know if you're doing the right thing as a CEO? How do you know if you've got the right people in the right positions? So those things have been very helpful for me from a standpoint of you're building a relationship. It's not a high pressure situation, and a lot of times, my other partner, Mark Bingham, says this all the time. He says it's lonely at the top, and what that means is sometimes you just don't have people to talk to about things that are happening in the company that you shouldn't be talking about, right? They need to go and think everything's fine. Your employees, they need to know where you're at, but sometimes there are decisions you have to make that really take you to make them. And so an organization like Corporate Alliance helps it be not so lonely at the top.
I couldn't agree more. I'm thinking about, the event you and I are both at on Friday. And I think, like you said, you want the investors to think you know what you're doing, so you're not necessarily telling them about the parts of your life you don't feel like you know what you're doing. You want the staff to feel like they've got a leader who they should be trusting to lead from in front. So you don't always discuss everything with them at first. You don't want to freak everybody out, right? And for me, that event we were on Friday, there's got to be 150 people there, right? And knowing that there's all these people going through the same kind of things and telling the same kind of sarcastic jokes about the parts of our lives that nobody else in our company has that exact problem if we're the CEO, but you're now in a room full of 75 CEOs and their spouses feeling like, okay, it's okay, I have these struggles. There's other people in life with these struggles too. And maybe it helps with the self-pity or the loneliness or those kind of things for me, I think.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that, there's a benefit, and you feel comfortable, right? Now you've got business friends. And I know some people in that organization are more than just business friends. They're friends outside, and they do a lot together. So it creates where you have some similarities in business and that where you're at, that now you have that ability to escape or make that your escape versus some other escape that somebody may do. So,
yeah. Well, listen, we're getting close to the end of part 1 here. Why don't we close with a question? Thinking about all the mistakes you have to made, because everybody in business has made mistakes. What's something you wish you would have learned earlier?
Boy, that's a hard one, because there's a lot of things I wish I would have learned earlier. Probably the biggest one. I started my career as a CPA, graduated from college. Well, played football and went to college, got a degree in accounting, and went and started my career in accounting, and then went and became a city manager. I always had a thought, look, I'd love to be a business guy. I love that concept of having something myself. I grew up on a farm, so anybody that doesn't think a farmer is a business guy that has their own farm that has to rely on Mother Nature to make things work is crazy. It's not just a farmer; they're business guys. And so, some of that where you have your own, you control your own destiny. But it took me until how old was I? Mid-30s or so, early 30s, before I took the shot at doing something on my own, which was good and bad, right? I got the experience to get to where I was. So, hindsight, I probably would have said, look, maybe should I have done a little bit sooner? That may be on one of them. And then just after I did it, probably the ways I did, I jumped in big time. We jumped into a $32 million project right off the bat. And with the experience that I had, it was probably a little bit too much. And we did okay, and we were where we're at, but should have started smaller. Maybe life wouldn't have been so difficult to get to where we're at before the downturn. And so the downturn was a little tough for us, but we got through it, and it's been great.
I like the stoic Idaho farmer. The downturn was a little tough for us. I'm guessing there was some emotion going around.
There was a little bit of emotion. It was like that the year on the farm when you didn't have any rain for all year and you cut your crops, and it didn't even come close to paying for what it cost to cut them, let alone everything else up till that point. So it was a little bit tough, but we made it through. I have great partners, and I think we learned from that, which is going to help us in the future for sure. That's
great. Well, let's cut it off here for part 1. Make sure to tune into our next episode. We're going to ask Cameron about what life is like when you're trying to do a $100 million fund. Well, that's it for the episode. One other thing I wanted to tell you about, if you remember the guys from Convoy in episodes back, Ken Free and Trent Mano, I went on one of their CEO trips to New York, and I met a guy named Brent Thompson, very successful entrepreneur. He was former CEO of Jive Communications, big company now, I think $300 or $400 million. Anyways, he started a new company called blipbillboards.com. I'm super stoked they're a sponsor now. But I remember a year and some ago when I met him, I thought it was genius. Instead of having to buy 6 months or a year's worth of billboard for thousands of dollars, you can buy 8 seconds at a time for like 10 or 20 cents. You pick what billboard you want it on, what time of day you want it to run, and it just puts so much power in the hands of marketers and CEOs who want to try something and see if it works. You can buy as many or as few as you want, change it as many times as you want. I think now our podcast is being advertised on billboards in like 18 different states because we have these guys as sponsors. We're pretty excited about it. Hope you check out blipbillboards.com. Thanks.